Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in to Otram's video channel for part 2 of the FJ40 power steering conversion. On this video, we're going to put the pitman arm on, hook up the drag link, and then we'll put the power steering pump bracket, power steering pump, belts, and hoses on and get a running system. So now we've gone ahead and we've already rebuilt the center link bracket, and we've got our drag link on here again. So we can go ahead and put our pitman arm in the drag link, and it just slides in and then goes forwards into the notch. And then you can just push, there's a spring-loaded bit at the back that you push in, and then there's a big threaded plug that threads in the back. And then let me grab my socket. You can use a really big Phillips screwdriver to do this. I happen to have my grandfather's drag link socket that makes this super easy. So we just tighten this up. And we're just going to put it in there snug for now. We'll come back and actually do the adjustment once the pitman arm's on. So we've got our steering wheel facing straight ahead. We've got our wheels facing straight ahead. So now we can take the pitman arm and line up the splines and wiggle it up on there. We may need to run it down a bit with the nut just to get it seated. And where'd my socket go? Sitting right here in front of me. We'll run this on a little bit so we can get everything, we can get the lock washer and everything started. Pull that back off. We'll stick our lock washer on there and a little dab of red Loctite just to be extra sure. We can stick our nut back on. Let me grab my torque wrench and we'll torque that up to 130. There we go. We've got our arm torqued on there. And now that our drag link end isn't going to be flopping around anymore, we can go ahead and tighten it up. And we just put the big straight blade drag link socket in the end fitting. Tighten it up till it's snug, and then we back it off half a turn. And I gotta go grab some more cotter pins. I'm out, but then you just stick a cotter pin through the slot in here, and you're good to go at this end. So let me reposition the camera, and we'll start working on the power steering pump bracket. Okay, so now we're ready to start doing the power steering bracket, and to do that we need to take the motor mount bolts loose. You can probably do this without supporting the engine, but just in case, we've got a cherry picker hooked up to the front engine hanger bolts, or hanger mount. And let me tighten that up a little bit, and then we'll start in on here. I just want to make sure that we've got a little bit of support on that engine. And now we can come through, and we're going to take each of these bolts out one at a time so we don't lose our position. And I already came through here and cracked them loose. And then we'll take the longer bolts that come in the kit, and we'll start them, but leaving them hanging out far enough that we can get the bracket in behind there. And a swivel socket helps quite a bit for these lower two. Get that guy out of there. And I already put a little bit of blue Loctite on each of these new bolts. We'll come back and mess with that one in a minute. There we go. Put this top one in. There we go. Let me go grab the bracket. And I was thinking wrong. This top bracket bolt is not a through slot, so we got to pull that top bolt back out real quick. I was thinking we'd be able to slide that down behind there, but we're not going to be able to. So we'll pop that out. And then we'll just come in from the top up behind the smog pump and fish this down onto the two bolts we've already got under there. And then we can feed this top bolt back in. We can go ahead and snug this guy up. Make sure it's seated all the way down. There we go, those are snug, so to hold everything in place. I'm gonna have to grab a different swivel socket to feed this guy in, but we'll snug that up. We'll come back, I gotta look up the torque spec, but we'll come back and torque those in a bit. And then we'll be ready to put the pump on. So I'll be right back. Okay, so I went ahead and did a little bit of preliminary work to get ready to put the pump in. There's always a little bit of finagling, like counting how many washers you're gonna need to get the pump spacing right for the belts. And it's always a little bit different with each one. So I figured I'd do that beforehand, before I started making the video. So we ended up, to get room for the smog pump hoses here, because originally the smog pump was facing straight up and down and the hoses wanted to go right through the back of the pump outlet. I took the tensioner, it used to be on this bolt on the water pump, and I took the tensioner bracket and moved it down to the next bolt hole down. And I've got the stud for the water pump tensioner, or the power steering pump tensioner running through it. I've already got that bolt, lock washer, and nut tightened. And then we can take, stick a flat washer on the stud, and we can take our tensioner bracket, feed that on there. And then another flat washer, a lock washer, and we'll just stick this nut on there loosely. And then I ended up with 3 washers on the front of the bracket for the power steering pump. And we've already got the Valley Hybrids aluminum pulley on here, just with a 9/16 fine thread, half height nut with a little bit of red Loctite. So we can just stick, the pump on the lower bolt here that's coming through our bracket. And we'll just install that loosely. It just goes in the bottom pump mounting hole that's next to the outlet hoses. And then we can stick our tensioner over here to the other side. And on that, I left my washers over here. Just 1 second. I'm going to take 1 bolt and stick it through the tensioner bracket, followed by a flat washer, and a nut. I'm just using the nut as a spacer. And then you can thread that into the front of the power steering pump. And then your tensioner, we'll let you work it like that. I'm going to go ahead and lightly tighten up this lower bolt, just so we can get our pump aligned. And with that lightly lined up, you can just take a small straight edge and just stick it across the back face of the pulley to see that you're lined up with the water pump pulley. And if you need to, you can tweak the lower mounting bracket. There's some adjustments. You can slide this around to get it right. You can change your washers around. But that's pretty much mounting the pump. And then I'm just going to have to finagle to find a belt. It seems like every one of these takes a different size belt. But you got, good amount of adjustment here. And then we'll get our lines on here in just a moment. I'm going to have to bend the outlet line for the Saginaw pump a little bit better to get it to clear. So let me move the camera around and we'll come back. Okay, so I went ahead and put all the hoses on here already, just because they were kind of fiddly to route and I was messing with them a lot to get everything to fit back in here right. Basically, we've got our feed line coming from the back of the pump. It kind of loops up over, comes around to the box. And this is just a solid axle mini truck power steering line. And then we've just got a piece of bulk hose for the return line going back to the nipple on the back of the pump. And I just had to kind of move and flex it around a little bit to get clearance around the air pump hoses here. And then the air pump hoses, they go back the way they were, just took a little fiddling to get situated. There's probably a couple different ways you can route it. That was just the easiest on this truck. I'll move you around here to the front. And we've got our belt on there. It's a bit loose. I need to get one maybe about a ½ inch shorter, but it was special order. But once that comes in, we'll pull the smog pump out a little bit further, tighten up its lower bolt, and tighten up the adjuster bolt here on the front and lock it down. And then we can use our power steering pump as the actual adjustment. We'll just pull it till the belt's tight, lock the bolt down on the back that goes through the bracket, and then you can lock down the 2 bolts here on the front on the adjusting bar. And then you're good to go. You just need to bleed the system. And I usually will just fill the reservoir up with the wheels off the ground, turn them back and forth a couple of times to try to work fluid through the system, and then turn the truck on and let it idle, and then slowly move the steering wheel back and forth with the wheels still off the ground until the air bubbles work out. And sometimes you'll need to work them out a little bit and then let it sit to let the fluid, the frothiness go down in the fluid, and then do it again, maybe 15 minutes later. Usually it's pretty quick. Anyway, that's it for mini truck power steering conversion on a 40. Hope you found it useful. If you like what you saw, please subscribe below, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.